Hey guys, what's up? Stock Retail coming back to you. Happy New Year. Happy 2025. What a great start it's going to be to the year. Just hope that you all had a great 2024 and much better things ahead in 2025. We've all had our various ups and downs. I have learned to just embrace the journey, especially in AMC, or if you have been in GameStop as well. It's been a long journey, but I have grown so much through this time. I know many of you have as well. And I just honestly believe that 2025 is kind of a time where a lot of that growth starts to pay off in our personal lives and hopefully here in our stonks that we love as well. So just want to wish you all a really great new year. I had been prepping a video over the last couple days, just had a lot of family stuff going on. It's the holidays, so we all have that. And so it dragged on a little bit and I couldn't get to it. I want to go ahead and take a little bit of a forward view on AMC. If you followed me a while, you know that I tend to do an entire year forecast. I will kind of do that soon. I'll even do a look back at 2024. It turns out I was, again, very, very close on the overall box office. I think I had started to talk about it last, I don't know, November-ish, and it said we'd have a slight dip in the box office this year. Sure enough, we did, but boy, did we end strong. The last two quarters were amazing. Combined, if we were to have four quarters kind of like these last two, we'd have like a $10 billion box office. So the last two quarters have been fantastic. And I want to just look forward a little bit because, with the announcement a couple of weeks ago about Goldman Sachs, I saw kind of a line of FUD. And I before I get into this, I want to just set this up a little bit and share with you kind of what I'm looking at. I told a friend recently. I said FUD doesn't always have to be lies. We've kind of made FUD a synonym for false information, fake information, misinformation, whatever word you want to put to that. But FUD can also be I can carry an element of truth, but I can fixate you on the topic that I want to fixate you on if I was a manipulator, right? And I can set up that topic in ways that cause fear, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or they cause the uncertainty or the doubt. And so I get you fixated on these things. I get you nervous. I get you worried. I get you into a negative energy place. Whether you're spiritual or mystical or scientific, you would know that, when I focus myself on the negative, there are impacts to that on my physical body, on my mental state, on my emotional health, and even on the decisions I make. So this is what the manipulator does to you. And they're very good at it. And so it bothered me. I saw it coming, I don't know, a month ago or something. And I told people in private, yep, I see it. So there's some topics that I want to address, but I just want to come at them. I tend to lean back on logic. You've all heard me say facts over FUD. And so I want to come back to just the way I see AMC setting up and what's coming over this next year, and do that in, I don't hyper pump, though some like to accuse me of that. I like to just share the information with you, and the information has kept me in AMC all these years, and I still am very excited for what's to come. So I will go ahead and look forward a little bit, talk about our situation, talk about what's coming, the way I see it, and just help you decide whether what you're seeing is FUD or whether it's something, to be, overly concerned about. So let's just jump in. First off, let's remind ourselves the journey AMC took. So if you look I'm just looking at long-term debt. Another confusing point, right? So part of FUD is actually confusion too. Some people like to take AMC's leases and call that debt. To me, that's just an ongoing, it's a liability for sure. It shows up on the balance sheet, AMC's sort of lease liabilities. But that in a way is like future rent. And so I don't particularly want to call that debt. So when you see me talk about debt, we're talking about borrowing. We're talking about the financing AMC has done. And if you look, prior to COVID, AMC had about not quite 5 billion. You can see it was about $4.73 billion of debt. You guys also know that I always say, no trust me bros here. You can fact check these things by going to the SEC Edgar website and finding AMC's filings. So this 2019 number, you could find the annual filing for 2019. That's called a 10K. Quarterly companies file this 10Q, and then once a year they file a 10K. And so you could go find that debt number in that filing and fact check me. So I've drawn a little line here to say, all right, where was AMC pre-COVID? And then obviously COVID hits, AMC takes a ton of debt just to, pardon me, just to survive. Seems pretty logical, right? We all know that journey. AMC had to ironically keep the lights on even though the lights were off, right? Every door was closed. There was no revenue. That is a very tough situation. But if you go back over these years, even the first videos I made, or things I was saying on X, 4 years ago, AMC has a fixed cost model. So when the doors are closed, there's still a lot of costs. Those are fixed. And they had to negotiate a lot of flexibility there. But the reason that is bullish for AMC, and I'm not going to do it so like that kind of DD video here, but just the quick flyby, the reason that's bullish for AMC is as revenues improve, if you have a fixed cost model, a heavy fixed cost model, things like rent for AMC, for example, then your revenues start going up faster than your expenses. And so if debt is one of the big sort of, I don't know, bugaboos, or I don't know what the word is I'm looking for here. If debt is kind of one of the concerns of shareholders, then we ought to be tracking how that is going. And you can see just simply visually by this chart, it's fantastic. Adam and team have been paying off debt quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. And so you can see by quarter, how has AMC's debt been tracking? And you can see it's down very rapidly to the point that we are, as you can see, as of the last filing, as of September 30th, we were at 4.048 billion. Okay. So we were, $700+ million lower debt than pre-COVID. And just think of having suffered through the sort of financial harm of all that of all the lockdown decisions, and to now be actually at a much lower debt than even pre-COVID. That's a pretty significant thing to say. And we're not done yet. So let's take the look forward. So first off, it's just let's ground ourselves in the fact that we're almost down to, we are down to $4 billion of debt, whereas even pre-COVID, it was almost 5. And at one point, it was all the way up to almost 6. So we're far lower debt. And remember, every quarter, that's an expense. You've got to pay the interest payments. So I'm kind of setting up a cash discussion here. There are further paydowns upcoming. So take this $4 billion number that we've landed at as a starting point. All right. So I'm just getting you to the starting line of where we are now. All right. So what's coming? Well, we have further paydowns upcoming. First off, in the quarterly filing from the last quarter, the team already announced that during Q4, so that would not be in the filing, but they kind of gave us a little more information and said they had already paid off another 45 million in debt. So take this 4.048 and take 45 million off of that they've already done. It was early in this fourth quarter that we've just finished. Now remember, so we had the video going around from one of Adam's interviews where he said, hey, there's all this convertible debt and there's more than $400 million on convertible debt. So this is the discussion that Shorty wants you focused on in terms of there's all these shares that are tied up and we can't sell more shares. And I can hit that in more detail another time, but just as a high level bullet point, that's what people are trying to get you focused on. Well, let's consider what happens when those shares are used. So there's a bunch of shares that are spoken for. I've covered that in a couple other videos before. You could go back and find that. But the net effect is they're going to reduce our debt by more than another $400 million. That is a debt to equity convertible swap. So there are these bonds that will turn into shares and the debt will just get erased off the board. So right off the bat, you know that what's coming, and this is this sort of like 566 conversation. I think it's more complicated than that. So, I don't necessarily post a lot about 566. Some of you know what I'm talking about. That there's definitely a point though where some of these bondholders are going to flip from debt to equity and we erase this 400 million plus off the board. So there's 445 or call it near $450 million of debt that's about to be reduced. Now go back to this chart and think about that. That alone would bring us back down to almost $3.5 billion. I'd have to make this chart go way lower. You can see the bottom of the chart, I've kind of put a minimum here of $4 billion. So now take off another $450 billion, but we're not done. So remember the recent Goldman Sachs 50 million share forward agreement. If you haven't watched, go find. I did 2 videos on that. One in particular was a deep dive through the filing that explained what a forward agreement is, what was happening here, how there is a floor price that Goldman will pay, so they'll pay no less than this. I had used a hypothetical floor of $4. That was just me guessing at that. And I'm kind of wondering if I was right, to be honest, because have you noticed we've hovered around this $4 mark on the stock? That's not very good proof that I was right. That could be complete coincidence. I don't know. But let's just say Goldman was paying a floor of $4 for our stock. Well, then AMC got $200 million for that. There's some nuance to the timing of when those payments come, but for the sake of our discussion, I'm just going to say they got the $200 million. Now we know they said they're going to use some of that for the AMC Go plan, right? We're putting in more lasers, we're putting in more premium screens, like the bigger screens that people will pay a premium for. In some theaters, we're actually reducing the seating but making it nicer, like bigger seats. Maybe you saw, it was kind of cool. Carl Anthony Towns, or some people call him Cat, in New York, went to one of our theaters, and there was kind of a video posted, and it was on AMC's Twitter feed as well. Was like, here he is, a 7-foot dude, and he was kind of saying he had plenty of room, both width and length. He's a big guy, and so he was kind of celebrating, hey, a big guy like me can go to the movies and be pretty comfortable. So you'll see more of that type of seating, more of a nice experience. Well, that takes money. And I had kind of even predicted that in my Q3 forecast. Side note, I still will come back to discussing what I believe happened in Q3. For the trolls who like to pretend that I'm hiding from that, I'm not. Anyway, so I had said, hey, I think there'll be more capital expenses coming up. So that's what you see here, this CapEx. So I'm here on this 3.1. Let's say they get this $200 million and they set aside some amount for the Go plan. I've just said $75 million, and they set aside the other 125. Let's say they do a debt pay down. There is nothing that Adam has said that says they're going to do that. You could also set that aside for cash, which, by the way, remember that as I discuss all of this too. Shorty wants you afraid of cash burn, and that's what I'm just going to set up a discussion on, of why I'm not overly concerned, why I'm actually not concerned. And so anyway, let's say AMC uses 125 of that and pays down debt. Or if you want, you could say, well, maybe they set that aside and they sit on some cash. And then remember, before I move on though, and again, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch that video about the Goldman Sachs forward agreement and how Goldman is going long. And also, if the stock goes up over the next 6 months, basically, and it's an average price. If over the next 6 months, let's say that floor was $4, but if the stock averages something higher, then Goldman owes AMC the difference between the floor that they paid and the average overall for the price. It's a volume-weighted average. So in theory, 6 months from now, AMC may also get more cash. Okay, so file that in your mind as well. All right, so we know that there's at least 445 million. It's really something more than that. I just didn't take the time to go back and get the exact number. But so 445 million, I'll just be more conservative and call it that. So that's going to be more debt pay down. 45 already happened. I talked about the convertible debt. And then hypothetical, in my scenario here, let's say they use 125 to pay off more debt. So that'd be $570 million of further debt pay down. Well, what would that do? $570 million debt reduction, if you just use around 10% a year. There is some of AMC's debt that is lower than that, so you would not see that level of savings. There's a little bit of the debt that's actually higher than that. And so I'm just saying I'm comfortable for easy math using an average, and you'll just have to give or take a little bit here. This is not like deep DD. I'm just kind of giving you napkin math. But if they paid off $570 million of debt, and again, remember, 400 of this is happening whenever the stock finally is allowed to move a little bit. And then 45 already did happen. So that $57 million at 10% interest would be $57 million a year of cash improvement. That's $57 million a year that AMC would no longer have to pay in terms of interest payments. And then there's whatever value that has to the stock in terms of improved cash flows and a future outlook, covered sort of valuation and price to earnings ratios and price to sales ratios in past videos. You can find that too. But there is a value that Wall Street uses in terms of the current value of future cash flows. And whether you want to use, like, say, 20 years, 30 years, something along those lines, you'd have to price this value into the stock. And then there is some value just in terms of the balance sheet being better as well. And then, that $57 million a year, so that equates to about 14 and a quarter per quarter. So just think of all the last few quarters of results you've seen, and imagine if AMC had almost $15 million a quarter improvement in terms of cash. Okay, so right there, file that away. That is our current situation. So when the shorts want you just saying, oh my gosh, maybe we're starting to be out of shares to sell, they're not telling you the whole picture, right? This is what always happens. They just get you focused on one side of the equation. But if you've ever done any math, you know you need to do two sides of the equation. Or for some of you accountants out there, you got to balance, both sides. If there's a debit, there's a credit, or whatever, dual entry accounting. I'm getting out of my zone of expertise here. But the point is, you got to consider both sides of what do they want to talk about: a seesaw, a scale, accounting, math. Things need to be in balance. And when you only consider one part of something, you get out of balance and you start thinking badly. And so they're focusing you on the share count that's left. I'm reminding you all that happens to get us there. That perhaps, if even pre-COVID we were at like 4.7 billion, and the effects of what's about to happen, we may be all the way down to 3.5 billion. So if we're $1.25 billion less debt than pre-COVID, and I've shown you in many videos with a lot of DD and fact-based sourcing that shows AMC is actually going to be more profitable post-COVID than it was pre, and we have lower debt. I mean, this is just something I'm not concerned about. But let's not stop there. Let's talk about the cash. So what is our current balance? Well, we ended September 30th. That's that filing you can go see either on AMC's investor relations site, or you can go to the SEC Edgar site. Our current balance was 739 million of what I'm calling current assets if I take out something called restricted cash. So if you go to the balance sheet, you can just go, if you open that PDF, a lot of times there's a lot of pages. So you can do a Control F, right? Find and look for balance sheet, or you might find like consolidated balance sheet or something like that. And you're going to find a page eventually that has assets and liabilities. And on there, you can look for current assets. They're right up at the top. So you'll see the cash, which I'm also showing you. Notice it's this $527 million of cash. So we had $500 million we came into Q4 with. So just think of it's a snapshot. Earnings reports are always a snap in time. So you take this picture of the books at the very end of the quarter, and how did we look? At like midnight or midnight 01 or whatever on September 30th when it became October 1st. And so as of September 30th, we had this 527 million in cash. I'm counting current assets because remember, what you'll see if you were to look there is something also called accounts receivable. Well, that means AMC's getting paid for, people who have put some things on credit or something. And often they'll get paid within like 30 or 45, at most 90 days. And so they had, a bunch of money still coming in accounts receivable, and then there's some other things in current assets. So generally your liquidity, right? We've talked a lot about that word liquidity. I like to look at overall the current assets, but whether you want to look at cash or current assets, I'm giving you them both, and I'm taking out something called restricted cash, which is AMC has to say, well, we have this cash, but it's spoken for. We kind of have to pretend like we don't have it. So I'm not counting that piece. So if you counted restricted cash, then this number goes up even more. What you're going to want to look at over the next year. And so I guess I'm showing my cards a little bit. Shorty can try to get out ahead of this and run some narrative. Go ahead, be my guest. We're going to talk about cash from operations and a forward look because, enough people are wondering about AMC's cash flows. We'll talk about it. So those will be future videos, and we'll kind of do a deeper dive and look at this. And so you're going to want to watch cash from operations. Is AMC keeping its doors open, bringing in more money than it costs to have the doors open, is kind of a way to look at that. Now, of course, you got to remember we have popcorn and candy now, and maybe we still get more distribution. I'm not sure. Adam's gone a little quiet on that, so I'm not sure how to take that signal just yet. But either way, we know popcorn is expanding. By the way, remember he said that was expanding. Upcoming here at the beginning of the year, we're going into even more doors. So that continues to grow. Candy seems to be flying off the shelves. That continues to grow. And so cash from operations is going to be more than just keeping the doors open. I was just saying that as a kind of a saying. But notice, I want to show you something. Look at cash from operations versus the box office. In 2023, and I'm using that because think about in 2024, we had the strike, right? So we had a significant impact from the strike in 2024. Q1 and Q2 were really rough in terms of the strike impact. So not only has AMC gone through COVID, AMC's also gone through the strike. And I've told you many times, the shorts will try to focus you on the rear view mirror and get you looking backwards. So a lot of the people that are going to talk to you about cash burn are going to use in particular Q1 and Q2 of this year, which were the deepest strike impact. And they want you thinking like that's our forward view, but it's not our forward view. We're going to talk in a minute about what does 2025 look like. And so I want you to be thinking forward because we're now in a different reality. It's like we've switched timelines. We're not on the old timeline anymore. All right, so in 2023, AMC had $215 million burn. There was cash burn in 2023. Now remember, Q2 and Q3 of 2023 were cash flow positive. Those were profitable quarters. You know, we had Barbenheimer and some other stuff that was great. And the box office overall in 2023 was 8.9 billion. So what I just want to ground you at a very high, very simple level is on an 8.9 billion dollar box office in 2023, AMC had $215 million of cash burn. But now what's different as we're about to turn our eyes forward and look at 2025. So let's think through what's different since 2023. Well, first of all, 2023 had almost no popcorn. If you'll remember, that went live late in the year and it was, a couple hundred doors at Walmart at first. Since then, we've gone to thousands of doors of Walmart. We've gone to Amazon. We've gone to Kroger and Publix. And now we're going even further, Adam has said, here in the new year. We had no candy. And let's go back to that debt view. So if you just look down here, can you see here? Here's Q1 23 to Q4 23. So we were up here, kind of starting the year close to 5 billion. So if you took like an average number through the year, yeah, we averaged around 4.7 billion. Like if you took these 4 quarters and said, all right, we probably averaged carrying around 4.7 billion, which was oddly enough that pre-COVID number as well. So we're kind of in here. But now think through 2025. I already just told you, we're going to be somewhere way down here. So we're going to be like, $1.25 billion less debt in 2025 than we were in 2023. So now I want to just start setting up, you're doing some comparisons in your head and you're saying, all right, I want to think through what's different from 2023 in terms of the box office, and what's different in terms of revenues. I already signaled about popcorn and candy, and then what's different in terms of, all these debt payments. All 3 of these things that I'm kind of highlighting, 4 of these things, popcorn, candy, box office, debt payments, are radically better in 2025 than they were in 2023. So I'm giving you a starting point to just say, we burned 200 million in cash. I'm coming in at least to, October 1st with $500 million. So we're going to have to wait and see where did we land Q4. Again, remember though, we had some stock sales as well. So let's just say I'm coming into the new year with, some amount, 300 to 600 million. That already tells you you'd have enough to last a whole year if it was like 2023. But I'm telling you it's a lot better. So let's start looking at that. I do not want you to take this 2025 number on the right as my forecast. This is not my forecast. I will do a forecast video for 2025. This is, let's call it a pre-forecast. So it is a number from me. I did spend I think it was 2 days ago, I spent a lot of time going through literally every single movie for 2025 and double checking as well. I've told you guys on a couple videos way back, you want to always double check from a few sites because you'll see things like Dirty Dancing 2 was a good one, a good example to share with you of what happens. For a while, you would see on some sites that it was coming out next year. Then you suddenly go and you double check on a couple sites and you find out, oh, actually, it's kind of been delayed. They're still working on some of the storyline. It hasn't started filming, and there isn't really a date right now. And so I can't, in good conscience, forecast numbers for that movie if it's kind of up in the air right now. So that would be one where I had to double check and say I can't put numbers against that movie. But you can see I got real bullish looking at all the different movies. I'm going to show you some of those in just a minute so you know where I'm coming from. And if you just look at the last few years, so we had this 2023, here's the box office, and I'm just kind of showing you visually that I think we're, around $800 million bigger box office than 2023. And you can see the strike blip here in 2024, that even with these last couple really great quarters, the first two, dragged on us significantly. Had we not had the strike, we probably would have been profitable for the full year this year. I still believe that. But that's coming in 2025. So let's not stop there. So we see, we're $800 million better at the box office. Imagine that's not just AMC getting more ticket sales. And by the way, this is just the domestic box office. Now think about that globally. So that's not just AMC getting more ticket sales. That's also more bodies in the door who are buying food and beverage, and they're buying merch. And some of them are saying, you know what, I really like this A-list idea because I can go to more movies for just, 20 plus bucks a month. I get 3 movies a week. You start to get a lot more business off that box office for AMC. And that's back to that fixed cost thing I said, where we've got certain costs like rent that don't go up even though the box office got a lot bigger. So some really good things coming. So here's some personal opinions and just very high level forecasts. So 2025, I believe we're looking at full year profits and positive cash flows. So Shorty's going to get you real focused on Q4 that we just finished, and on Q1, because Q1 is generally the lightest quarter of the year, and I do see that in my forecast. I have a quarterly forecast I'm not showing you yet. And so they're going to say, sky is falling, worry, 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 uh-oh, what's coming? I'm just not there. Adam is smart enough to know he can look forward and, let's say if I don't know, I'm trying to think of a metaphor here on the fly, which is probably a mistake, but if I have a long enough bridge to span a gap, I go ahead and I walk across that bridge to get to the other side. I don't sit here and go, oh no, there's a gap. I see the path to, the promised land of where I'm trying to get to. And I go ahead and have the faith to walk across it. And so if that is what's happening, and Adam looks and he says, all right, I've stored enough cash for this next quarter or whatever, quarter and a half. And by the way, I'm going to show you too, just even already in like February, I said Q1 is light, but in February, things already start picking up. So in terms of a monthly view, Adam's like, well, I just got to get to February or March, and things start to look a lot better. And he may have various other plans and things that we don't even know about. And I still don't have full line of sight to the popcorn business and the candy business. And so he knows some cash flows that are going on. My point is, if he's coming in with, the cash I talked about a minute ago, and he sees here comes profits through the rest of the year, then I just don't know what there is to really, let yourself be swallowed up by fear about. And so I'm just not. So, I said the second bullet here, Q1 is the exception, but Q2 through Q4 are so big that they're going to turn the whole year positive. I do believe that. And I'll do a forecast video and kind of show you why. And I'll go in the details for those who really like the details. I want to just talk about something, and this kind of gives a little bit of a nod to that Q3 conversation that some folks would like me to get to. The main thing last quarter is there was an attendance dip. I don't know if that was a blip or if it's a broader theme that AMC is now, is it our new normal? We're going to see coming out of Q4. There was a significant attendance dip. That is, just already I can give away that in a nutshell is why my numbers were wrong for Q3. I didn't see an attendance dip coming, and I don't think any of you did either. I have some opinions on why that is, and I will talk about that. And I'm not concerned still. You can see I still believe, when I tell you 2025 full year positive cash flows, I have already adjusted my attendance numbers down. I just said, all right, what if things are not as good as they used to be and we have some new normal for AMC and our attendance numbers, I've got them recovering a little, but I did not bring them back to the rate we were at before. If we recover, and this is what I'm saying at the bottom, it's actually a positive, if you even notice, if last quarter was just a blip in attendance, we're going to rocket back. I would be able to bring my numbers far more positive even than what I'm telling you. And I'm already telling you, I believe 2025 is full year profits. So I have assumed only mild improvement in attendance. Let's see if we can track a lot better than that. I believe that Adam and team, they're very smart, and they will have seen it, and they will already, when you're an executive, you go to the room and you start drawing up on the whiteboard, what are our plans to fix this? And so they would have already done that months ago, I'm sure. So I'm not concerned, but I want you to know that actually I would get a lot more bullish if I see our attendance recovering. So if I'm telling you my base case is a positive full year, and then you could get a lot more bullish from there. That's what I'm trying to help you see. So again, where are you hearing the worry in any of what I'm saying? You shouldn't be, right? But now let's put some meat on the bone. Here's some of the movies coming in 2025, and this will tell you these are some of the movies that I have forecast as bigger, some of the bigger ones. So we've got the Minecraft movie. I have three kids. All three of them played Minecraft through the years. All of their friends played Minecraft. I have a feeling this movie is going to bring in a fandom that some of you, if you haven't had kids, or maybe if you're older and you just didn't play Minecraft, you may not be aware how big Minecraft is. So I think that's going to be real big. You can see that's already coming in April. Zootopia 2 comes a little bit at the end of the year. I think that's going to be very big. There's a lot of fans of that. Wicked Part 2. Good Lord. I mean, you guys have seen how big Wicked is. And boy, if anybody at Universal ever listens to me, you guys got to stop bringing stuff to digital so quickly. Wicked got brought to digital, I think, a day or two ago when it's still hitting kind of all time numbers in terms of a musical, in terms of a Broadway port over to theaters. It's in terms of any November release, it's hitting like, in the third week it hits the best, and the fourth week it hits the best fourth week, and the fifth week it's been the best fifth week, and sixth week, etc. And so these guys at Universal got to start figuring out to let some of these movies have some legs. But Wicked already is huge. Go look at the box office numbers for that. I would imagine, by the time some people see that on digital as well, and it has a year to kind of permeate in the culture a little more, Wicked 2 is just going to be phenomenally big. How to Train Your Dragon, another one that's huge with kids and families. In my house, we watched all of those on the cartoons. My son loves them, my youngest in particular, I mean. And so I think that's going to be really big. Jurassic World Rebirth, cool name. ScarJo is in that. Jurassic World, well, all the Jurassic movies of late have been very, very big. I think the last one globally was close to $1 billion or something, like maybe 800 or 900 million. I don't remember too well. Those are very big movies. That's coming. Snow White, we all know how big that franchise is. If you didn't see the Superman trailer that came out, I think it was either 24 or 48 hours, it was maybe like the second most watched trailer of all time or something like that. It was some really big number, whatever it was. Even if I'm wrong about its ranking, it was a very, very big number. We're talking, I don't know, 30 plus million people or something watched the trailer in like 24 hours or something. Those are made up numbers. I'm already wrong on those, but the point is it was huge. Lilo and Stitch, that's coming out live action. That's going to be another huge one. Big fans in my family. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. By the way, if you haven't seen part one of that, I do really recommend it. Pretty cool. Some thoughts on AI and just a really neat movie. And obviously Tom Cruise doing crazy Tom Cruise things. Look at the airplane thing he's about to do in the next one. And it's just really cool. The Michael Jackson biopic is coming out. Sony flat out said they are going to put just a bonkers number of marketing behind this because they believe it's going to be one of the biggest things ever. So they've already come out and publicly said that. They also moved the release date to kind of align with, I think they really want to just own October. I believe they moved it to October, which is great for us, by the way. October tends to be a pretty light month for movies. And so if Michael can just take that over and take the world by storm and be huge, that's going to be really cool. Captain America Brave New World. So remember, I mentioned that like February and March start to really pick up for us. Captain America is coming out in February, and all of the industry has pretty big forecasts for that. Fantastic Four is going to be coming out. That's going to be real big, and just kind of bring us back to kind of a beloved franchise. And then, I mean, do I need to say anything about Avatar? That's, those are the biggest movies ever. And all of this in 2025. And then interestingly, I had made this slide yesterday, and then I saw a few people, including Adam, tweet this image. Hopefully you can see this, but there's a few more. So this has, I think on my slide I had maybe, I don't know if that's 13 or 14, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 13 movies, I guess. This slide shows you even more. Pardon me, a little frog in my throat. 1 minute. All right. This slide has 36 movies on it. It looks like a little 6x6 grid. And so you can just see, and I did double check. I have all of these in that forecast. So that 9.7 billion I mentioned to you that I'd like to tighten up before I commit to a number. But you can just see, screenshot this or go find the post from Adam or something, how many big movies there are. And there's so many more than this too. A lot on this page that actually I'm pretty excited about. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So you get the idea, like 2025 is looking very big. So let's just kind of say it real simply. So I mentioned 2023, we lost a little bit more than 200 million on an $8.9 billion box office. But in 2025, just a few things. We've got maybe an $800 million increase in the box office. So I've already mentioned the impact to food and beverage, the impact to merch sales. We've got popcorn basically from a zero in 2023 almost to, something pretty big. I think we're going to be in maybe as much as like 10,000 points of distribution. We've got candy that, again, has continued to fly off the shelves. And no joke, if you haven't tried it, I'm not just being some kind of hype guy. Like, the chocolate covered pretzels are maybe the best chocolate covered pretzels I've had. And then I love chocolate covered raisins. There's the almonds, there's the peanuts. So I really recommend trying those. I think it's of high enough quality. Adam could consider going to retail with those. I'm sure that he's playing around with that and just thinking through what works. So I'll just trust the timing on that. But I could see us doing that. When we have, $1.25 billion less debt, which, if just look at this, if that's at that 10%, rough math, that eats up more than half of the cash burn we had from 2023 is already just poof gone in 2025 without all these improvements. So you can just think through that, say we're coming into the year with a $500 million in cash and it's that much better than 2023. And I'm saying, yeah, maybe we burn a little in Q1, but then I think we never look back. And so I think we've got the war chest to get through just fine. I can't promise. I imagine there is a scenario where Adam comes and asks us to vote on more shares, and I will do the DD when that time comes, and I will think through how I feel and be committed to and being an objective voice and all of that. But I'm just telling you, in terms of living in fear or like letting it rob me of my peace, I'm not there. I feel really great about this company. The thesis has always been, I can hold longer than you can stay solvent. So let's think about that too. So we know that 2025 and 2026 have been looked at as these like major turning points. And here we are. And now in the middle of us about to kind of turn the corner and finally have both the strike and COVID behind us, people are spreading fear into your minds, right? So I just think you got to level up and start tuning those people out. And by the way, I've kind of really started to try to help my followers on X see that the network talks to the network. You start to see the connections of who's talking to each other and who's echoing each other's sentiment. And, why are these people elevating and promoting really negative people and they don't ever elevate and promote someone like me? It's just worth at least asking. Why do certain voices get highlighted and elevated? And I think the answers are obvious, but I'm going to let you come to your own conclusions. But here we are, 2025 and 2026 have always been looked at as this major turning point, and we're basically there. I told you, if we just get to kind of February, March, things start looking amazing at the box office. So fear over what ifs is a distraction. We got to this point, and so people want to distract you. Let me ask you a question. Ask yourself this question. It's in the parentheses here. Have you seen a major short covering event? You already know the answer to that. So if you haven't seen that and you know the business is about to be amazing, then you start asking more questions. Why are so many online accounts and media so concerned with us? Why did we have all the FTDs, right? Go back and look at my FTD videos that are in a whole FTD playlist. You can just get right to them. Why were there so many halts? Why have we had years of all this high frequency trading and swaps and derivatives? Why did we have FTX and, Congress themselves telling, the SEC to avoid looking at FTX? Why did we have the Stokens? And just, I could go on and on and on and on. People want you focused on one little detail because they don't want you thinking about the big picture. Don't fall for that trap. That's all I'm saying. Step back, assess the facts, use some logic, and logic your way out of their fear. So, a decode, just something personal and fun. Great, Scott. I had a little laugh actually because I made this slide yesterday, and then I saw I didn't. I honestly, I promise you, this was not on purpose. I forgot that we're hitting like the 40th anniversary of, if Back to the Future was kind of like 1985, they're traveling. Here we are in 2025, and so there was a bunch of posts in my feed this morning, and I was like, "That's hilarious," because I literally put this in yesterday, not even thinking about that. So I don't know, maybe coincidence there, but great, Scott, and you guys know that we will win. So let's go.